I watched Boy in the Striped Pajamas a few days ago. It's a film that they teach you in school around year 9, year 10. And for the people that don't know, it's about the war, World War II, and about the concentration camps. And you're seeing it from a point of view of a soldier's kid, basically, that moved there. And I think he's like a general. He kind of controls a big part of this camp, a very important person up quite high. And so you're seeing it from the point of view of his kid. When I watched this in class way back, I didn't really care for understanding absolutely anything to do with history. It was actually a little bit later that I would actually start to get really into history and love it, but not until I had a really good teacher. At the time though, I had no clue about any type of history ever. And so when I watched this film, I was like watching it, I didn't really take it in, and I feel like I didn't really understand what was going on because I didn't know, right? If you know the history of our history as humans, you know kind of what's going on, right? It gives you details and you can pick up on quite fast. But if you don't know about the camps, if you don't know about Germany at the time, and the hatred of Jews at the time, you kind of just like, you're in this, is it naivety? You're kind of like the boy, right? He doesn't really know what's going on, but he kind of does. And so when I watched it the first time, I was like, whoa, like, you know, the ending is like horrific. And this time when I watched it, I kind of had a completely different view on it. You know, as a kid, again, I was the naivety of the boy. I was who he was, in the sense of like, he didn't know, and they were just farmers, and why is this person, you know, peeling potatoes if they're a doctor, and why is this little boy, you know, not playing games? And as a kid, or when I was younger, I guess I was kind of in the same naiveties of like, well, what's actually going on here, you know? And now, obviously, I watched as a kid, and there's like a million different clues to what's going on. Again, I know the history. I have watched the film before. But it made me feel really, really quite sad. I have a really good time. Not a good time. I find it very hard to not empathize with movies in general, and a lot around the horrific things that we have done as humans. I find it very hard to separate myself from those things when I watch them or learn about them. It's kind of like I'm there. It's kind of like I feel a really deep sadness that kind of teleports me to that place. Luckily, it doesn't last for too long, but I'm very good at it, not by purpose. I wouldn't choose to feel a type of way when watching a film, but I do. It's just something that happens to me, and I don't really know why. What I do love, though, is the mum, right? Because everyone is under this, the idea of what Hitler thinks, right? Jews are this, Jews are that, they're horrible, they're this and that. And most people conform to that. Now, most people conform to things for many different reasons, but obviously I feel like it shows how hoodwinked Germany, the population of Germany really was. And obviously Bruno is a kid, so you're playing on a different field, right? When you're a kid, you're playing on a different field from trying to, how do I explain it? The kid has such imagination, and he doesn't understand a lot of things, and the things that have been knocked into a lot of the older or teenager, like his sister, has clicked, and it's stuck there. It's just stayed there. All right, Jews this, Jews that, and it's stuck there, where he hasn't had enough time to have made that opinion up via other opinions. So he's still in that bit where he doesn't really understand, even though everyone's telling him around him that these people are bad and they're this and they're that. So he has freedom, if you will, with his mind, and that's beautiful. I love that. And the relationship between Small and Bruno is beautiful from both sides, because you could see how if everyone got along like they did, yeah, I mean the world would be a better place, right? But his mum is really beautiful, and I think she could have done a lot more, of course. But having been around such toxicity, been around such evil, she's still stuck on her stuff. You know, when she learned about the concentration camps and the dad's there saying that this is, you know, it's for the country, it's to have a better world, we're to tell this and that. And she says, it's not that way. Not that way. That's fine. You know, we're having war, right? Cool. But that's, you're taking it too far, right? And although that did never appear to me when I was a kid, now I look at that and go, that's amazing. Because every single person around her doesn't only agree with the statement that Jews are bad and they're dirty and they're this and they're that. Not only that, but they actively go even more aggressive. They don't just agree with it. They actively go against it, like, you know, with it, right? And they feed into it and they push into it and lean into it. Whereas she's kind of the other way, where she's trying to pull back just ever so slightly. And that is very impressive with a world that are filled with the same thought processes. And obviously within Germany at the time, that thought process was the norm. Yes, you had few people that were like her, but those people don't get to communicate freely because they don't know who believes what and how they feel about things, and are they a traitor, will they get reported? At one point, one of the soldiers' dads didn't agree with it. He moved somewhere else and he got reported and he lost his status and went to the front lines. It was a very volatile state for anyone in Germany, and it made it, you know, like a toxic workplace, if you will, but with the whole country. I've read a book about a man that had been in the camps. It's called Man's Search for Meaning, and it's not that big of a book, but he talks about it, how it was, and of such. And it's really quite beautiful, because in it, he basically says, and I know this is a very a very quick scoop of what the book is, but he basically says, it wasn't that bad. And obviously, for 99% of people, we'd look at that and go, yeah, no, it is that bad, right? But he says that if you are still willing to live, if you still see a reason to live, then it's not that bad. And obviously that's a very, very extreme take on it, but it has come from a very extreme place. And I find solace in that for the people that were there, that they saw a purpose to carry on, to try and live another day. Again, horrible, horrible conditions. But I'm glad that that book exists to allow us to know that someone that was in it saw a point to live another day, and because of that as well, we can understand that a lot of others there felt the same way. Maybe if they never said it or never read a book, but they must have felt the same way because they tried to live. And that is a very beautiful message. I feel sorry for all of the people that died in the war, in the camps, wherever it may be. And I also feel sorry for the people that weren't bright enough to understand that they were being hoodwinked Because we got to remember, Germany, Hitler wasn't the only one that had been hoodwinked in any of our wars. We've had so many wars that, you know, a lot of our population gets hoodwinked in thinking they're doing the right thing, and they're doing the best thing, and they're doing, you know, for the greater good. And normally, that isn't true when you're killing someone. So I feel sorry for those people as well. I think, although it's very hard to happen, but kindness, I feel, is always the best way forward. Unfortunately, again, not everyone's going to follow that rule, and not all people are like that. I dream of a world where two nations want to go to war, and every single person within those population of those nations say no. I will not kill my fellow human. It's a big stretch. And it may not ever happen in my lifetime, but hopefully one day it will. Yeah. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.